Right, are we on to point 7
shall we
now?
move on to point 7? This one is really, should additional moorings be provided on the canal network for tourism and leisure uses or for mixed-use development, including residential and or business moorings? For example, additional moorings at Little Venice Pool to create mixed-use leisure area, moorings at Lisson Grove, any other areas suitable for residential moorings, and any other areas suitable for business barges to provide affordable accommodation for small businesses, and are there any other areas suitable for tourism and leisure facilities?
Elizabeth, you...
I would like to talk to the first one because we've had a lot of problems with that, with licensing, and I think there is a degree of agreement amongst the residents around the pool that the pool is a sanctuary for peace and quiet, and there's a certain amount of use. The attempt to sort of levitate the atmosphere at night is not good news, because we finish up with an awful lot of drunken party revellers sort of wandering around an area which they don't know well, looking for transport which does not exist, and it's not a good idea. There's a puppet theatre there which is absolutely first class, highly recommended. There was an art gallery which seems to have disappeared, and nothing is in its place. And the boat comes in from Camden Town on the regular stop on the far side of the pool. And I think most people who live there think that that's a sort of a fairly satisfactory set-off of one thing and another, with the occasional party boat coming to stop there, but then moving on. Because any attempt to moor the party boats there means you have awful problems with rubbish and the arrival of stores, a great deal of noise late at night or in the early morning, and it's not acceptable, and it will be fought.
It does seem that Little Venice is overdeveloped almost. I wonder if there's any possibility of creating somewhere similar to Little Venice, maybe nearer the Harrow Road, maybe making widening the canal or making a pool area there.
It's certainly, actually, it's interesting, something that we've been talking about. It's a bit difficult. There's a little tiny patch south of the Harrow Road where you can actually see the canal looking pretty, with a couple of mooring, narrowboats moored there. But other than that, there's a whole thought, but not much more than, as to what might be done with that. Though I don't imagine there's going to be a lot of digging out and pooling. It wouldn't be feasible.
Why not?
Because, well, I don't know. The land use would be difficult. But I mean, I don't know that I can't think of any reason why. At the moment, there's nothing to prevent an exploration of that in principle in the current setup. Really, I wouldn't have thought current planning
north
requirements.
of Carlton Gate, is it you're thinking of?
No, slightly
Or
further west
Harrow
than
Road.
that, on the other side of Great Western Road. But anyway, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't want to see anything tightened up so it couldn't be thought through and be made feasible if it was feasible.
How residential is that area? That
Well, it's pretty residential, you see. But there is the Meanwhile Gardens site on the south side of that, where I'm speaking
That's
about.
marginally in Kensington.
I know. So
It's
not,
right on the border.
So it's not an obvious. It's not going to happen tomorrow. But we're just thinking about what might be good for that area. Really, that's all.
There used to be youth service canoes on the pool, and that seems to have disappeared. We do still
Beach
have
and
the
Lodge.
lovely Beach and Lodge
Barge.
which is the sort of the
Yes.
remainder of what was offered by
But
the youth service.
they have had an offer for doing sailing, canoeing, and something else for preparation for the boating base. We'd get the younger ones and the handicapped people to do it where it's less dangerous.
It would,
So
yes.
It's
a
been done
great
up in
deal of
Camden in the meantime, isn't it?
Yes, Camden have taken over that, but Alex Prowse art barge has gone, but you wouldn't object to another art barge like that, would you?
No, well, I mean, the one that's there, that was his barge, seems to be being lived on by somebody. I don't quite understand what the situation is there.
But just to sort of finish it, I mean, it would be hugely useful if one could get some sort of canoeing base for the youth service somewhere up in the north where we have the families and young children, and to restart Sea Cadets, which used to be a thriving thing sort of few years. Well,
Is that
going
something
back
that-
about 40 years, I have to say.
Where were they based?
Well, they were
Based
QK, and then
At
was
Beach
where
Lodge,
the when it was a boys' school, there was a sea cadet group, and then they had boats down near Lisson Green.
To Warwick Avenue as
But
well.
then beside Beecham Lodge,
Yes.
We had
there was the.
There was a development offer for Beecham Lodge for canoe boats underneath the solid bridge, the road bridge, which would have allowed them to have developed. And one of the developers was very keen to move that, but I don't know where it's gone to now. And that would give storage for them in the quiet waters, the backwaters of the Arm. So if
When was that, Anne?
that was underneath the house, when?
When?
3 years ago.
As part of the Paddington Basin development, there was, there was a requirement, wasn't there, for a facility for boating on the canal?
There was at one time, we had a
Yes.
condition and we had an offer and we had the property as well. But I'm a has-been and everything like that, and so I don't know where it's got to now.
A harbour master's building was required for the Merchant Square development. There's a new bridge proposed there, pedestrian and cycling bridge, across the eastern end of the arm of the canal there.
That's it.
And part of that bridge has been allocated to be a harbour master's building, which includes some canoeing.
Was offered to Beecham Lodge, the harbour masters, but then there was such a delay. They then said they'd give them something nearer to where the storage of the boats were going to take place, which was underneath the Howe Road. Because then when they came up from their storage, it was pouring with rain, the children could be underneath the bridge.
The boats will be stored underneath the harbour master's building.
Oh, was that? Oh,
And when
it must have
will that
redesigned it. Anyway, I do hope it goes ahead, because they desperately need Beecham Lodge to do that.
Well, that's hard to say. 2 buildings are underway. They'll be complete next year, but this isn't due to be provided with the 2 buildings that have started to be built. That's 2 of the 6 buildings. There's another 4 buildings, and Harbour Master's building is linked to one of those. So it's up to the developer. There's 6 entirely separate planning permissions.
Well, somewhere in that sort of the complexity of Paddington Basin developers and whatever, it really would be hugely useful if we could link somewhere, hook on again to get that, because it was a facility that was heavily used by schools, and if we're talking about use of the canal,
Canoeing, wasn't it? Not more than
it was canoeing, yeah.
principally, because it was
Yeah.
the light and they could get.
It was canoeing, which is,
We did a bit of
healthy
sailing.
and sport and all that. And as you said, changes of permissions and these things get lost.
I mean, one thinks that Paddington Basin's very close to St Mary's on the campus there. I just wonder if PCT have anything to say about these things. Use of the canal for healthy living.
Well, I know that just from personal experience, it's very expensive to use the river. Like for the canal, for the use of canoes, it was £50 for the 2 hours or 3 hours when Hayden and I used to.
You know, I can't hear you. I am so sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm just saying, I'm all for using the canals for use of physical activity, but it's about making it not expensive and the cost accessible to everybody. Because we looked it up, me and my partner would go for the day, and it was £50 each for the hire of a canoe down the canals around Paddington.
From the area where they're now, are they somebody doing canoeing
I don't
now?
know which particular. I don't know if it was the one we're talking about, but it was around the Regent Canal.
But this was for commercial use rather than for community use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I take it.
Well, I just hope very much that the idea was they would run the 2 together. That was what the developer wanted. Look, whatever is the plans, that there are plans to have canoeing on the Paddington development eventually, if not.